On March 10, 2026, a video surfaced that instantly reignited everything people believed about Chuck Norris. Standing in Hawaii, calm and focused, he sparred with someone half his age, moving with a precision that didn't look like it belonged to an 86-year-old man. There was no struggle in his movement, no hesitation, just rhythm and control built over a lifetime. Then he looked into the camera, smiled, and delivered a line that felt both playful and deeply personal. "I don't age, I level up." Within hours, the internet lit up. Fans flooded the post with admiration, nostalgia, and disbelief. For a moment, it felt like time had simply chosen to leave him alone. Not because he was untouchable, but because he had spent decades refusing to slow down, quietly redefining what aging could look like. Clearing the record before the story continues. Before going further, it's important to address something directly. There is no verified or credible confirmation that Chuck Norris passed away in March 2026. Stories claiming a sudden death, a family statement, or final days in Hawaii are not supported by reliable sources. Narratives like this often spread quickly because they are emotionally powerful and feel complete, almost like a film ending, but they blend imagination with reality. That doesn't make the story meaningless. It just means it should be understood as a dramatized or fictionalized tribute rather than a confirmed event. When a figure like Chuck Norris carries such a strong legacy, it's easy for stories to take on a life of their own. The real story, however, is still ongoing, and it deserves to be told with clarity. The power of a story that feels real. What makes this kind of narrative so compelling is how closely it mirrors the truth of who Chuck Norris has been. The idea of him training one moment and being gone the next fits the myth people have built around him. A man who never slows down, who never fades gradually. The structure of the story taps into something deeper than facts. It reflects how people feel about him. For decades, he has represented endurance, discipline, and a refusal to quit. So when a story suggests a sudden, peaceful ending after one last display of strength, it resonates emotionally, even if it isn't real. It's less about what actually happened and more about what people believe could happen, because it aligns with the legend they've come to know. The real beginning behind the legend. To understand why these stories carry so much weight, you have to go back to where Chuck Norris actually started. There were no cameras, no expectations, and certainly no mythology in Ryan, Oklahoma. His early life was defined by instability, financial struggle, and a constant sense of uncertainty. He wasn't the confident figure people would later see. He was quiet, unsure, and often overlooked. His father's absence and his mother's resilience shaped him in ways that weren't visible at the time, but would later define everything about him. Moving from place to place, trying to fit in, dealing with self-doubt, these weren't the beginnings of a legend. They were the beginnings of someone trying to find direction in a world that didn't offer much guidance. The turning point that changed everything that direction came when he joined the Air Force. It wasn't a grand decision driven by ambition. It was practical, almost necessary. But it placed him in an environment where discipline mattered and structure existed. In South Korea, he discovered martial arts, not as a performance, but as a practice. It gave him something he hadn't had before: control. The movements required focus, patience, and repetition. For someone who had spent much of his life feeling uncertain, that structure was transformative. He didn't become exceptional overnight. He trained, failed, learned, and trained again. That process built confidence slowly, layer by layer. By the time he returned home, he wasn't just physically stronger, he was mentally grounded in a way that would shape every step that followed, building strength through setbacks. Back in the United States, success didn't arrive immediately. He opened small martial arts schools, struggled financially, and faced defeat in early competitions. Those losses mattered. They forced him to adjust, to study his weaknesses, and to keep improving. Over time, he began to win, and eventually, he dominated. Holding championship titles for years wasn't just about skill, it was about consistency. That same consistency carried into his transition to acting. Hollywood didn't welcome him with open arms. His early roles were small, and critics were skeptical. But audiences responded to something genuine in him. He didn't look like he was pretending to be strong. He looked like someone who had already proven it long before the cameras arrived. Fame, loss, and the human side of strength. As his career grew, so did the complexity of his personal life. Fame brought opportunities, but it also brought pressure. Relationships were tested, mistakes were made, and difficult truths surfaced over time. These weren't the kinds of stories that defined his public image, but they were part of his reality. He faced them not as a character, but as a person trying to reconcile his past with his present. Later in life, his priorities shifted even more clearly toward family. Supporting his wife through serious health challenges required a different kind of strength, one that had nothing to do with physical ability. It was about patience, presence, and commitment. Those moments revealed a quieter side of him, one that didn't seek attention but carried deep meaning. Why the myth refuses to fade. The reason stories like the Hawaii narrative spread so easily is because Chuck Norris has become more than just a person in the public eye. He has become a symbol. The Chuck Norris facts, the exaggerated jokes, the larger-than-life image, all of it created a kind of modern mythology. But beneath the humor, there's a real foundation. People see in him a version of resilience they admire. Someone who started with very little and built something lasting through discipline and effort. So when a story presents a final chapter that feels poetic, strong, sudden, and meaningful, it aligns with that mythology. It doesn't feel out of place. It feels like a natural ending, even if it isn't real. The truth matters more than the myth. As powerful as these stories can be, there's something more important in separating fact from fiction. Chuck Norris's real life doesn't need a dramatized ending to be meaningful. His journey already carries depth, struggle, growth, and impact. The real story, the one grounded in truth, is more valuable than any fictional narrative because it reflects actual perseverance. It shows what can be built over time through discipline and belief. While imagined endings may capture attention, it's the real, ongoing story that continues to inspire. And as of now, that story hasn't reached its final chapter.